when such a relationship arises, the notion I am a jiva, or living soul, arises in consciousness. So what we've got here is, if we have something that can be known, and there must be a knower, then a sense of selfhood arises. This is the jiva, the living soul, or I think I prefer the term psyche, the individuated psyche. Soul's got all sorts of ghostly connotations to do with leaving bodies and things. By the further identification with the knowable, in the pure consciousness there arises the notion of egotism, and then the faculty of discrimination, or the rationalizing intellect. So what's happening here is it's getting more grossly defined. We've got the ego, which starts to... The ego can be defined as the sum total of likes and dislikes, the sum total of what you're attracted to and what you want to reject. And so this is where discrimination comes in. I like this, I don't like that, I like you, you stay away, I want to destroy you. After this, the mind and the root elements arise. These root elements combine again and again to form the worlds. Right, these root elements combine again and again to form the worlds, which is a strange thing to say, but I'm going to say a bit more about the elements, I think. But let's just read on for the moment. Spontaneously and also by orderly changes, all these countless forms appear and disappear repeatedly, even as cities come and go in a dream. None of these needs any instrumental or material causes like earth, water or fire, for all this is of the essential nature of consciousness, and it is this consciousness that apparently creates all these, as one creates cities in a dream. It is nothing but pure consciousness. Again, we've got this comparison with what goes on in dreams. You know, what are dreams made up of? You know, if we were concerned in a dream with that question, well then we'd be having a similar debate to the one that scientists have, and people in dreams would be looking under microscopes, looking through telescopes, examining things far away and close up, dissecting things. They'd be going through the same experiences as scientists do in what we call real life. And they'd be finding similar things, or maybe even weirder things, who knows. But none of it's going to be accurate, because isn't a dream made up of all the same stuff? If it's made up of anything at all. So it's nothing but pure consciousness, that's the point. It's nothing but pure consciousness. I suppose you might argue, well, what's the evidence for what we normally call reality being pure consciousness? Well, I think there's lots of evidence, but I'll perhaps spend some time on that at another date. The five elements are the seed of which the world is the tree, and the eternal consciousness is the seed for the elements. So he's saying here that the world comes from the five elements, and the elements come from consciousness. As is the seed, so is the fruit, or tree. Therefore the world is nothing but Brahman, the Absolute. It seems a bit strange to give the five elements this kind of place. Making the world dependent on the five elements, where it doesn't, where it he immediately subverts this idea. the world isn't made up of the five elements, it's made up of the of consciousness, in as much as you can say it's made up of anything. But why mention these five elements? There's a lot that could be said about the five elements. The five elements in Hinduism are earth, water, fire, air, and what's called akash, sometimes called space, or sometimes called ether, which was supposed to permeate everything. If you like this, by contemplating the five elements, it can actually bring you to some kind of realization. We tend to think of this as a rather primitive piece of speculative physics, a bit like the ancient Greeks had their four elements, which were the same as the first four of the Hindu Buddhist teachings. But there's more to it than that. Well, the elements aren't necessarily substances, they can be seen as qualities, and they're actually the basis of a lot of yogic techniques. The qualities of the elements could be, well, the earth is the one which could have been, we described earlier as inertia. It's solid, solidity, and earth is the grossest element, and then we've got water, which is fluid, it's looser, it flows, so there's that quality of flowing. So these are two qualities we can identify in the world of solidity and of fluidity. And then we've got fire, which its nature is more, it's subtler, isn't it? We've got increasing subtlety here. We've got earth, solidity, fluidity, and now we've got fire, which has got a radiant quality. It's radiant, it's warm. And these things in some yogic systems relate to aspects of the body. We've got the material body, and then much of it's made up of water, and then we've got heat, which, if we didn't have our body heat, we'd be dead. We can still have our earth component, but even when we're dead, the material aspect's still there. Similarly with the fluid component, the water component, which apparently makes up most of our body, but then without the fire component, the heat component, we can't exist, we'd be dead. And then of course, even subtler than that, there's the air quality. Now what's happening here is we're getting more and more intimate. There's a direction here, going from the grosser to the subtler. And so we've got the air component, which again in Hinduism is tied in with what's called prana, which is like the chi in the Oriental systems, like the chi energy. It's a subtle energy, which, whether we believe or not, we can still see how important air is to us, and air is even more subtle. And then we've got the akash, or space, which is even subtler. It's that within which everything exists, and you could even regard it as intelligence. We shouldn't really regard these things as inert. It's part of our life, it's part of the universe, it's part of the vibrancy of things. So there's actually a direction here, getting more and more intimate, coming back to our central being, which is tied up and sometimes identified with this akash, or space, or ether, whatever. It's actually sometimes identified with this intelligence, underlying intelligence.